Are recording. This is episode 2 of Is This a Pickleball Podcast with Matthew K. Pickleball, and I'm joined here with my good friend and hopefully my pickleball partner of the future, Mr. Wilson. How are you today?
Hey guys, I'm doing good. How are you doing, Matt?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to play pickleball today. LA's seeing a little bit of rain, but it's good when we do get rain, so I'm just trying to think about that. But how are you?
Not bad. Like you said, this is the the 1 week out of the few rainy weeks that we have in a year here in LA. And I'm sure all the indoor courts are all booked right now.
Oh, I bet they're packed. But what else has been going on? I know you had an exciting weekend. Do you want to tell the viewers a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, so I took a little break from pickleball and I went back to my my previous hobby, or it still currently is, but I ran a 10K race over the weekend. It was the Chinatown Firecracker Run. It was held at the Chinatown in LA, in downtown LA. It was cool. It was very hilly. Haven't ran that hard in a while. Definitely was not my PR or my personal record, but I think I did pretty well considering I haven't ran in a while.
Well,
All
how,
my time has gone to pickleball now.
What did you I saw on Instagram there was some hardware earned, is that correct?
Yeah, it's right here.
Adding adding it to your collection.
Yes, yes. I have a box of running medals and I still have a couple of pickleball medals that are still hanging around. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Congratulations. And then
Thank you.
I also heard you've got some pickleball plans this coming weekend. Is this true?
Yeah, I last minute signed up for the iPickle Spring Classic in Cerritos. So I'll be playing men's doubles on Saturday. And if you guys see this video before that day, if you see me, come by and say hi.
Yes, and I believe you're partnered with friend of the channel, Dwayne, who's been featured in some of our play footage. So that's
Yep, yep.
exciting. I'm wishing you both good luck. And then
Yeah.
before we get move on to what's new in pickleball for the week, that's the section I want to move into next. How do you think last week went, Wilson? We made a podcast. We're still trying to answer that question. Is this a pickleball podcast? We have one episode. A few people watched it. I got some positive feedback. I saw you posted something. Like, have you gotten any feedback from people? Anyone watch it? Tell me, give me the tea.
Yeah, definitely. It was all positive. Um, and everybody was surprised when they first saw it. They were like, "What? Wilson's on a podcast now?" So, yeah, it was great. I hope all the other viewers enjoyed it. I had a blast doing this with you. Um, it's exciting.
Good. That is great. I hope this one will be exciting too. And so now let's just jump into it. What's new in pickleball for the week? Wilson, do you want to kick things off for that? Maybe
Uh,
do you have any, I know you follow the pro scene a bit more than me. Do you have did anything interesting happen this
I
past
mean, I
week?
watch a little bit of the YouTube videos
Oh
and
no,
the replays, you know.
one of us has to track the pro stuff. Like
One of
that's a
us.
bit. Well,
Yeah,
did you spot anything of note?
yeah. So, last week was the PPA's Cape Coral in Florida tournament, and I think someone, an unknown 16-year-old, beat BenJohns, right?
Yes.
That was a surprise.
That was the big highlight that I took as well, which, just
Yeah.
goes to show, um, yeah, I don't know. The young people are really pushing into pickleball and challenging the norms. So yeah, it's exciting, crazy time. Anything else new in
Uh,
pickleball you want to touch on?
yeah, well, also, I want to give BenJohns the benefit of the doubt because in the video, it was extremely windy. I don't know if you noticed that, if you saw any highlights or heard anything about it, but even the camera was like swaying back and forth the whole time during that match. So I'll give him that, you
All
know.
right.
It was a very windy day, and I don't know if you ever played in a in windy weather. I mean, but
Oh
it's a
yeah.
pickleball, it's not a tennis ball or anything, right?
I
It's
want where I play with my when I visit home, my dad, we play at sort of this an army base has converted old or a National Guard base converted old tennis courts, but they don't one of the windshields came off. And so yeah, it's just a tornado like wind does can throw those balls around.
oh yeah.
Well, aside from that, there's some exciting news regarding paddle releases this past week. And so I thought I'd talk everyone through that, which one of the big ones was Gearbox has just released their brand new Pro Ultimate Power in 14 millimeter. And
I
so
love
this
that
is,
purple.
yeah, and this is, yeah, this is a from you Drippin, which is a good one of my favorite overgrip brands. And then the edge tape I'm using on pretty much I use on all my Gearbox paddles are actually Pickle Skins edge tape because they're super flexible. You can push the bubbles out. And for these pricey edgeless paddles, like I put that on right away. But anyway, this paddle just got dropped. I've done a few touches with it. I was not a huge fan of the 16 millimeter version. That swing weight was just not for me, but they definitely thinned that one out and it uses all that crazy Gearbox SST core tech. Like, I'm excited to continue playing with this because it was a nice follow up. I think I'm going to do a combo review. This is the Hyper that came out a while ago, which was sort of like the answer to like I mean the question I always had about the Gearbox. Well, when the Ultimate came out, my big criticism of that was it should have been more maneuverable, and they could have just opted. They have these more standard shape faces on some of their less pro lines, and then so they actually did make one of these, but I got my review unit pretty late, so I'm behind and didn't get that video out. So I think I'm going to do a combo review and sort of compare both. But folks, down in the comments, let me know if you've hit with these. I'd love to hear what you think. And then the other big thing that we've been hearing a lot about is Thrive, a pickleball brand that was sort of do you know Thrive, Wilson?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
They
they
I like their paddles.
yeah, so Thrive got like a lot of got really onto the scene. I mean, they've been making paddles for a while, but there's a lot of buzz when their Kevlar paddle, the Azul, came out a while ago. All the big reviewers went wherever Thrive's headquartered at and like did some exhibition matches and like it was a lot of fun. And around that time, I actually did get a review unit of some of their older releases, and I'm not sure if I've covered this on the channel or on Instagram, but they make really solid paddles. The big differentiator about them is they actually you get to select your specs, your swing weight or your twist weight. I'm actually not sure which ones you select, but I think it's both, or at least the swing weight. And then you get this card that lists all your stats. And so the thing that I always thought was interesting about how Thrive does things is they are testing every single paddle that goes out to consumers. And so the quality control, like just by the mere fact that they're having to measure all that, I mean, it must be stellar. I also just like the way they look. I think the full pink is a great look. And the smoke has been getting a lot of excitement. A lot of people have been talking about it. It's supposed to be a power leaning paddle. And the thing that really seems to be setting it apart is that its core uses 10 millimeter cells in its polypropylene. And I'm sure you know this, Wilson. I'm sure our audience knows this too, but most paddles use the 8 millimeter cells. I've always been a big fan of 6 millimeter cells, and I've covered that in my reviews before. Some of those Phantom paddles use 6 millimeter cells. 6 millimeter cells, in my experience, 6 millimeter cells, they're smaller than 8 millimeter, but the face is the same size as a paddle with 8 millimeter cells. And so your core has more cells, more plastic or more polypropylene, so it's denser. And in my experience, they typically hit harder, those paddles that utilize 6 millimeter cells. However, I have other thoughts about 10 millimeter cells. I had always thought that it would go the reverse. So dense core 6 millimeter cells hit hard, harder than 8 millimeter cells. Well, the 10 millimeter cells have less plastic because the cells are bigger, so there are fewer cells. So I would think that it would hit less hard than 8 millimeter cells. But that all sort of, my head really had to come to terms with that when I reviewed the famous PaddleTek Bantams, which these are Gen 1 paddles that utilize 10 millimeter cells, and they hit really hard. And I really had to go on a journey, Wilson, to have you hit with the PaddleTek, the Bantams?
Yes, yeah, they are definitely poppy for Gen 1 paddles. But do you think it's the weight they add, or do you think the 10 millimeter cells really help with the pop?
Well, so I agree. I do think these are poppy paddles, and I would describe them in my review. I describe them. Uh, the ball lives on the face very briefly when you hit with one of the PaddleTek Bantam paddles, and so the ball shoots off, or maybe you would describe it as springs off. Very little dwell with these paddles. And I actually couldn't really wrap my head around it. And it wasn't until I can't remember if I messaged Pickleball, etc., or saw it on a podcast he did over on Lewis's channel, Pickleball Pursuits podcast. But Justin, aka Pickleball, etc., who's one of the big paddle gurus on the scene, explained it at some point, and his explanation made sense to me, was that the 10 millimeter cell polypropylene seems to be a more flexible polypropylene, at least the ones PaddleTek chose, than the 8 millimeter polypropylene. And flexible is not the greatest thing for these cores for Gen 2 paddles or paddles that get cooked hot because they're not as durable. But the paddle techs, they were Gen 1 paddles, so they didn't get heated up. And so, really, that short time on the face of the paddle techs seems potentially to have been because their core choice was a more flexible plastic or more flexible polypropylene, so the ball would hit the paddle face and spring off. That explanation made sense to me. That's the one that I think really explains that. However, as you mentioned, PaddleTek does put weight inside select spots of their paddles, which definitely does add some extra oomph, and probably a little bit of stability. But that whole thing is to say the smoke paddle that Thrive has released is utilizing 10 millimeter cells. And so this isn't a smoke paddle. I actually don't have one. I'm trying to get one to test out, but I'm super curious how it plays. And their pre-sale sold out, but the official launch will be on March 17th. And yeah, I think 10 millimeter cells are a really interesting territory. And so I thought for today's podcast, we would maybe talk a little bit about that. And first, so I thought I'd go through. I've always, I've always been pretty obsessed with core cells, and before I did a podcast, and we're on episode 2, so we're now podcast experts, Wilson. But before
Yes,
I
we
did a
are.
yes, before this, I would when there were like AMAs or like at like what question like when there are question submissions for podcasts, I was always like try and find out if I was more focused on 6 millimeter cells back then because that's what I thought I really loved those paddles. And I'm just obsessed with trying to find out which paddles have those cells. But I'm just very curious about non 8 millimeter cell paddles. And so I bet other people are too. And so I wanted to go over some of the paddles that utilize 10 millimeter cells. And I thought I'd start with the ChorusFire, which I know you've hit with as well, Wilson. So I
Yeah,
thought, and just to really say this up front, there's some bad news. The ChorusFire EX and SX have been delisted, and the HX is going to be removed from USAP's approval list on July 1st, 2025 as well. And there's a lot of like questions. About how and why that happened. But Chorus, as you can see, I'm a fan of Chorus. It's a rainy day. I love this sweatshirt. I think more pickleball companies should do sweatshirts, not just hoodies. But Chorus is a company that is super obsessed with doing right by their customers. So everyone that got one of these paddles, like they're being taken care of because obviously they didn't buy one thinking that it would get delisted or removed so quickly. And so the owner, of course, his name's Matt, very cool guy. They're actually about to hit a 1 year anniversary, and they're doing something cool for that. And I'm actually think I'm going to try to get him on the pod. I want to pick his brain on a few things. But even though this series has been delisted or is sunset, it's still relevant to this conversation because it utilized 10 millimeter cells. And so, Wilson, what was your take? You've hit with at least the elongated version of this. Like,
yeah,
did you notice power? What was your
yeah. It definitely had an extra pop in it. But I did notice it was a little on the soft side, actually. Ever so slightly. I would still consider it a very poppy paddle, but it was not as harsh as other paddles that I've used. I really liked it because there was still a little dwell time on it, but still poppy, just like the PaddleTek. But probably maybe a
yeah, it's
hair
I definitely
lower
yeah, that construction
in power.
and the face choice definitely this one in particular, this is the SX. I was a big fan of that paddle. This is a paddle I felt comfortable playing with. And the paddle techs are always like they're on the edge, probably a little over
Mhm.
the edge. I like them dwell, especially on the soft hits. And I thought, of course, really cracked the code. And
Mhm.
I think I called this series the power paddle for the masses because I thought it really it really hit a good mix and was super powerful in my eyes. Unfortunately, these aren't really going to be seen out there. I want to get more info about that story, but Course does have a lot of other cool options, which I'll be covering on the channel, and I'm sure we'll be talking about. But that brings me, I thought we'd do a little 10 millimeter cell paddle walkthrough. And so I got a stack next to me, and I wanted to start first um, with this one. This I've reviewed on the channel. This is the old
Spartus.
Spartus Ballista. This I don't think I'm not sure that I don't even think they sell this anymore. But I remember really loving this paddle. This was probably the first paddle I hit with that had 10 millimeter cells, and but I don't believe they make this paddle. But rest assured, Spartus isn't leaving 10 millimeter lovers in the dust because they actually just released these super budget paddles, which you can get on Amazon. I'll be sure to leave a link. They're super cheap, but they're called their Apex series. And right now you can get one for $80, which is a wild price for a paddle from like a real brand. And these paddles use those 10 millimeter cells, and then they have a face layup that has carbon fiber and fiberglass. And to my knowledge, they have a Gen 1 build with target weighting, just like what we were talking about with PaddleTek. And so these are ones I'm going to get in the testing rotation ASAP because I'm super curious how they compare. And at 80 bucks, I think probably anyone could be a paddle reviewer and try these out because yeah, there aren't, I mean, that's a super budget paddle. And then we already talked about the PaddleTek Bantams, but there's something else in the mix, Wilson. It's from one of
What do you
the,
have there?
these are
Ooh,
the Vatic Saga, which come in a couple different shapes, including Vatic's new bloom shape. And these are 10 millimeter cells, which are Gen 1.5 though. So they are using edge foam. So the Paddletechs only use a little bit of weight. This is your traditional perimeter edge foam. And these are supposed to hit really well too. And so I think I might have to make a whole video talking about how the different 10 millimeter paddles play, 10 millimeter cell paddles play, because there are way more out there than I thought. Because before this podcast, I was looking into it, and there are a few more, Wilson. Do you want to know? Are you
yes, I
curious?
do. Yeah.
I wonder how many people have dropped off the podcast. But
No.
this is for fun. All right, if you stuck around, this is a paddle coming from Mark Pickleball, and I reviewed their very first paddle on the channel called the Kinetic, which was a pretty like one of the first Kevlar paddles out there. But this is actually called the Unmarked Alpha, and it was supposed to be out by now, but its release has been delayed a little bit, but it seems like it's very imminent. It's about to happen. But this is a paddle utilizing a core with 10 millimeter cells, and it has a carbon fiber fiberglass carbon fiber layup. And yeah, I'm excited to hit with this one too. I believe they've updated the colorways since this one, so definitely check their site out. But this is another one. And then I got one more in my little magic bag of
Is the
stuff.
Mark Gen 2 or 1.5 as well?
You're asking good questions, Wilson. I'll have to look into that because
Okay,
right now, it's not listed on their site. And so,
got it.
yeah, I'm very curious because it would be interesting to try a Gen 2 10 millimeter cell.
Hmm.
I'm curious because I believe that's how the chorus paddles were. And so definitely something I'm going to look into. But this one is another one that info is scarce on. This is the 11624 Alpha, and this was initially designed to have more power than the Hirache Control Plus. So more power than the carbon fiber version that was super popular last year, but with a softer feel than the Kevlar versions, which I know you and I both liked. And
Hmm.
so this one, I've hit with this some, and it's definitely got some juice in my opinion, but they have sort of translated. I think this was an experiment that ultimately led to the Power Series. And that's really what I want to talk about. The Power Series doesn't use 10 millimeter cells. And so that is a breakdown of 10 millimeter paddles with 10 millimeter cells. If anyone watching or listening knows of other paddles utilizing 10 millimeter cells, definitely leave a comment. Would love to know. And while you're scrolling down there, why don't you hit that subscribe button? Why don't you hit that bell notification icon? Matthew K. Pickleball needs the audience to know when these pods drop. Wilson told me before the pod, he's like, you need more subscribers, Matthew. I'm not coming on this pod for nobody. Like I need people to hear what I have to say. So everyone, do this for Wilson. He needs your support. But
Yes, do it for me, please.
Wilson, I know you've actually hit with the new power. And so I
Yeah,
thought maybe I rewatched our last
there
twins.
we go. Twins.
I rewatched the pod and while I was editing out the embarrassing bits, and I noticed I didn't let you talk. And so I thought maybe why don't you walk us through your thoughts on the Hirachi X power and maybe compare it to I believe you were playing with the control, the Kevlar 60 millimeter, the now discontinued one. So
Yeah.
like tell us a little bit about like have you played with it anymore? What are your thoughts on it? Just walk us through your take on it.
Yeah, so since the last podcast, um, I actually made this my primary paddle. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not Matt, and I don't have a bag f full of paddles to try. So this
Yeah.
has become my yet, I hope. But this is my new main, of course. I told everyone before that it's gonna become one once I dial it in. So yeah, compared to the Hirachi Control Kevlar, this one is surprisingly softer. You know, people have that notion that Kevlar is supposed to be a little softer than carbon fiber, but you know, even though this is I don't know the exact layout, but carbon fiber and fiberglass, um, it's surprisingly soft. And at least for this Hirachi, there's a lot of power in the baseline, but it still gave me the control that I wanted at the kitchen line, at the net with dinks and you know speed ups. Um, I really like this paddle, Matt. I don't
All
know if
right.
you've gone. I know you have a lot of paddles to test and all, but I hope you got some time with this.
You know, I wanted to actually hit with that series. You know, listen, I want to toot my horn a little bit, all right?
Yeah,
Because I was one of the first reviewers on to 11.6.24 way back when they released a paddle called the YSF. And I reviewed that paddle. I think I was one of the first reviewers. And and then I did a big breakdown. It was actually a pretty big turning point for my channel and for content creation. I did a breakdown of the original Hirachi line. And but then 11.6.24, the owner, David, he's like a big experimenter and he was creating lots of different paddles, lots of different face materials, and just doing a lot of iterative work. But he was sort of involving his customers in that process. And so there are a lot of paddles that he released last year, and I wasn't able to cover them all. And so I got behind, and then I think I might have dropped a few rungs on the review unit order. And so still haven't. I got the power paddles pretty late, and so I haven't gotten to do a video on them. But I'm actually working on that, and I'm really excited about them because I remember Braden over at Pickleball Effect um, posted that when one of the power ones sold out so fast, talked about how the J2K Plus felt similar. I believe that's what he had posted on an Instagram story. It was a story, so there's no evidence, so no one can really say I was wrong or right, but I can't actually remember which shape he said was like that, but I'd already been hitting with the J2, the Plus versions, and so I was super excited to try them out. And I did do a few hits, and I would say that they do have a different feel to me. And I'm excited to, I don't really want to say much more about the new power paddles from 11.6.24 because I will be working on a video. But for me, um, I've actually been hitting with the J2K Plus. And so it sounds like you got to hit some. folks, Wilson and I still haven't gotten to play yet. We were supposed to play
Not yet,
today.
huh?
Not yet. We were supposed to play today, but we got rained out. But I finally am trying to go back to my old pickleball routine. I know last episode we talked about what happened because of the fires. And so basically one of my whole pickleball schedule has been thrown out the window. And this week I finally went back to my main court out here in the LA area, and I got to it. I hadn't played there since December. And so
That's crazy.
yeah, there's like, I finally felt like I did my due diligence with the air stuff. Like, it's everyone's choice when they go back and do cardio activity with all the air situations. But I had been playing indoors, but I'd lost all my crews because I had it pretty dialed in. Like, I'd play with this group of people at this time of day, and that's where I would get to do drops and dinking. I'd play with this group, and that's where I could test the drives. Because really, I'm going out there to test what paddles can do. And I'm a big open, I don't do tournaments. I'm a big rec play. Like, that's why I'm there. I'm there to just try out paddles, see what they can do, and have fun. And it was a little hard to like find those kinds of games, but I finally went back to my old stomping grounds, and I wasn't playing my best. All right. And so I decided to just take a break from trying out new paddles, and I pulled out, I believe, the J2 Ti Plus. But I quickly switched over to this one, and this is the J2K Plus, and my particular review unit of the J2K Plus was is a little lighter static weight wise than my titanium version. And initially, when I had been playing indoor pickleball, I had actually, in my review of the J2 Ti Plus and the J2K Plus, I said that the Ti Plus was my favorite. Well, I think things are changing, Wilson, because I've been hitting with this one, and I think being outdoors, you would think having that bigger, beefier swing from the
Hmm.
titanium would be better, but I really don't know. I don't really have a good explanation. I do think I was playing at sort of like a weird level of with other folks where I had been playing, where it was just four hits from the baseline and let's see what happens. And so the TI Plus that I had with that beefier swing weight was a good choice because there weren't a lot of drops going on. There wasn't a lot
Hmm.
of dinking there. But when I got to go to my old dinking crew, like the TI Plus, like I wasn't really needing like I was moving up to the kitchen, and I really have been enjoying this lighter one. The hand speed is nice. Like, I still think the TI Plus I have is very quick in the hands, but this one just feels exactly like my old trusty lightweight J2 Ti and J2K, except that floating core has that put away power and that drive power. I actually got comments from folks that hadn't seen me for 3 months about my serves, about my drives. And so I think I might be J2K plus team now. I am going to try and test out a lighter weight J2 Ti plus and see where that stands. But yeah, that's my paddle update. This is my current main. When I was struggling to sort of get in the groove, I just stuck with this one for a beat, and yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. And so I wanted to share that with you. Um, and then
Nice.
but yeah, I know I'm really excited. I'm I've always loved the J2K, and then I cheated on her. I went to the J2 Ti, but this really, for what I'm trying to do with my game, I'm trying to transition from all court to power, and this really is very comfortable for me right now. And so I think this is where I'm going to be for a minute. I am excited to play with you and our friends and really put this one through the paces in a more heated game. But then I'm testing some other stuff too. I couldn't only play with the J2K Plus. And the one I wanted to really highlight was I mentioned this last week, but this is ProXR's control paddle. This is the 16 millimeter one. And if you're a control lover, this paddle it does exactly what you want. And I had played with the older version of I don't think they had a control version of the previous series. Maybe they did, but I had played with the 14 millimeter one, the one that Zane plays with, and that thing is a pop beast. This is super controllable. And so I've really enjoyed this. I'm gonna test this some more. And then everyone just set a calendar alert, set your alarm. ProXR is working on a new paddle, and I'm gonna really try and get that one and try and get a head start on testing that one and see what it's all about. But speaking of ProXR, I don't just Listen, I just don't test paddles. I like to
No,
test
no.
all this stuff. And so I actually have been trying out, I don't know if this will show on camera very well. Yeah.
Ooh.
These are,
It's it's
these are,
their collaborative shoe, right?
yes.
With
So
a
this
wide
is
toe box.
wide toe box. So this is a collab with SQAIRZ. This is Zane's shoe. And so SQAIRZ is known for golf shoes, but to my knowledge, but they did a pickleball shoe. And yeah, the feature that they're really highlighting is it's got this wide toe box, which is very nice. I think there are a lot of people that are concerned about too snug of a toe. And I've really enjoyed these. And there are a lot of shoe reviews on my channel. I try to pair them with paddle reviews because standalone shoe reviews or the algorithm doesn't love them for some reason. Um, but I would say of all the pickleball shoes I've tested, these sit very close to the ground, or they at least feel like that, especially this part. And so if you're a player that really wants to feel secure, after their split step or just on the court, I think these are ones to try out. They're very unique, but really the real standout feature that I love about these shoes are their shoelaces. I don't think it will show on camera, but their shoelaces have little rubber bits all along the shoelace, which seems to prevent them from the bunny ears from untying. And I guess that's an innovation from golf, but I think all shoelaces should have that. I love that. And so this is just a really interesting shoe. And so I've been testing that out. And then I wanted to ask you, Wilson, have you been testing anything out? I know you're testing one thing out. I don't know if you wanted to talk about it today,
What am
but
I testing out?
you've been testing out a ball machine. And so
Yeah.
do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So around Christmas time, I picked up the Zenith pickleball machine. Um, during the holiday, they had, some good deals and stuff. So I was like, what the heck? I've been looking for one. I've been wanting one for at least a year for the longest time. And so I picked it up. It's been really good so far. I sometimes have the middle of the day open, and that's usually when the courts are pretty empty because unlike Matt, I refuse to pay to play pickleball. I try to stick with public courts. So thankfully we have a lot of options here in LA. So around the middle of the day, I'll go and you know do drills and work on specific shots that I want to work on for that week. Yeah, I've been using it maybe every so often. I've used it a couple times already, but because of the fire, right, I wasn't able to. It's really cool because you can program it's the shot sequences and everything, and it doesn't just shoot one shot at a time. It can shoot different types of shots, and that's kind of nice because then you may want to work on a combination, like a return and you want to run up to the net and hit another shot. So you can do that with this Zenith pickleball machine. But one thing I really liked is the app. One little secret I found out was that the original app actually doesn't work so well from the machine, the on the QR code. So I found out that my Zenith pickleball machine works with the Ernie pickleball machine's app. So, if you ever decide to get the Zenith machine, you can go ahead and get the Ernie app for your phone, and it works perfectly. It works just like the Ernie at a fraction of a cost. The only thing different, I believe, is that it has a smaller capacity. I think it only holds 100 balls, which is more than enough because I don't think I can hit 100 balls without taking a break. So that's more than enough for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, we got our little Mr. Robot here with the hacks. I don't know how much Pickling for Good will like that, but
Hey,
it's
the
very
machine is
cool.
great. The
The
machine
machine's
is
great.
great.
And then I just looked at their site. It actually looks like it's sold out, but
It's
the,
been sold out for a little while.
okay. So, but the real highlight is like this, like right now the sticker price is 1800, but then it like listed at 990. And
Hmm.
also there is I'll be sure to leave a code. I have a discount code for the Zenith pickleball machine. I'll be sure to leave a code in the comments or in the description. But one other feature that I thought was cool about it was that the battery is removable, right?
Oh, yeah. So the Ernie is not. You have to lug the whole machine
Right.
to wherever you're going to charge it. The Zenith from Picklin has a detachable battery, so that's kind of nice. You can
Yeah.
just bring the battery into your home and charge it, and you don't have to lug the whole machine from your car.
Yeah. I thought that was a really cool feature. And one other thing to note about Picklin for Good is a lot of their proceeds are go to charity, so just another reason to check them out. We talked about them last week on the podcast because they were helping out during the fire situation out here. And so, yeah, they seem like a great company. I'm actually working on a review right now of, oh my, I'm working right now. I believe we talked a bit about this paddle last week, the
Electo,
Electo
huh?
3. Uh-huh. And yeah, I have really been enjoying this. I've been playing this alongside the Honolulu J2K Plus. And so be sure to subscribe because you really won't want to miss that review. This is a bargain Gen 3 paddle from Picklin. And it's very unique. And so I thought our next bit of business, Wilson, is you don't know this, but our next section is
For anybody watching this, I have no
yeah.
idea what's going on this podcast until Matt hits record. So this is
w-
only Matt knows the outline of these podcasts, all right?
All right. Guys, I send him an outline. He's fibbing right now. But this is actually our sponsored section. So this is
Ooh.
sponsored by BodhiPickleball. Um I don't know if I have my trusty PaddleTek has them. This is Bodhi Pickleball Overgrip, and they have a ton of products. They've got overgrips, they've got tungsten tape. They have now moved into weights for the butt cap. They've got a really cool bag, but they are sponsoring a section that Wilson is going to spearhead, which is the our strategy or tip of the week. And so, Wilson, I know I gave you a heads up. Do you have any sort of tip for playing pickleball or anything that you wanted to go over? And then, folks, hang around because I've got some new gear alerts to talk about, but that'll come right after this section.
Yeah, so tip of the week. The biggest thing I've noticed recently um, is that there are a lot more speed ups now with all these awesome paddles, right, Matt?
Yes,
But the thing is that everybody wants to speed up at their opponent. But after that, they expect a winner, right? They want it to be a one and done, a one and done shot, and there you go, next point. But as you advance in skills and play level, that's not always the case. People are higher level people are really good at countering, right? So they're just waiting for your speed up. So one thing I would say is my tip is always expect your speed up to come back at you. So what you're gonna do, what you should do is when you speed up, you gotta get ready. You gotta get your paddle back into its ready position for the next shot. So you gotta counter their counter, right?
right.
Um, and what you want to do is basically just get ready for the next shot. Don't just stare and marvel at your speed up, right? Get ready for the next shot. What you can do is practice on a wall, where you can speed up at the wall and then reset or punch at that the second shot, the shot that comes back from the wall. Or if you don't have a wall, you can use a what is that one, Matt? I think it's a Dink Master Pro,
The Ding Master
right?
Pro. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use that. Those are really good on working on your hand battles, your speed ups, your resets, and your counters. Counters are very important. So yeah, one thing I also noticed is that yes, I do use elongated paddle, and a lot of people say, yeah, it's heavier, it's more head heavy. Um, and the swing weight is too much for the net and hand battles. But one thing I can do is that although I can't change the sweet spot so much, instead of holding all the way at the bottom of the handle, just scoot it up just a little bit. Then you would change the balance point from like right here to maybe a little less. So you'll make the swing weight a little bit lighter by just shifting your hand up a little bit. And of course, you can go further and further, but um, yeah, give that a try, guys. When you're up at the front, move your hand up a little bit. Get ready for your counters after your speed ups, and yeah, practice against the wall.
All right. So be prepared. So when you speed up, Wilson says, be prepared, get ready for it to come flying back. And
Yes.
then it sounds like you are suggesting to folks to potentially experiment with cheating their grip up. Is that after their initial speed up, or when do you
Yeah.
cheat up?
You'll notice well, when I'm at the baseline, I might even be hanging my pinky off the
Yeah.
handle when I'm doing drives, drops in the back, anything, even my serves. But as I move up in towards the net, towards the kitchen line, I'm already going to be like moved up here, ready for hand battles and dinking. Of course, the closer you are to the face, I feel like you have a little more control. Yeah, you don't have as much power, but you don't really need that much power up at the kitchen. You would want your uh, faster hands and control at the kitchen more than power.
That that's interesting. I have two thoughts. One is I find myself actually, let me grab a paddle. Actually, I found myself now that I am playing a little more aggressively, I sometimes find myself when not in a hands battle, but when I see a lob or something, I actually find myself doing that, dropping the paddle and adding that back finger for massive stability. And so, yeah, I'm something similar. It's a different, uh, it's at a different point in the game, but I totally understand that
But yeah,
shifting your grip for the end point moment. Yeah.
It's
And
more
then,
control. That's it.
yeah, exactly. And then, so I do think changing grips is for more advanced play, but definitely I think that being ready and that mental expectation of the ball's coming back is a pretty universal no matter what your level is. And it highlights one thing that my second point that I have been seeing now that paddles have gotten so much put away power. I'm seeing folks be super aggressive with their poaching. Like they're jumping like over the middle line in front of me. Like I almost included a clip in a play footage of my it was of my J2K Plus video of like a person at rec play just stood and like jumped in front of me. I think he had a Matier. I can't remember. He might have been experimenting with the true foam, so used to
Mhm.
Matier, but he jumped in front of me. I'm on the left side, and he does a massive poach, but he doesn't
Mhm.
win the point. So it's still going, and he's not ready. And I actually I called it like a switch, like he wasn't moving back. And so I just went to his side of the court to finish that point. But my point about that point is that I feel some folks, now that they have all access to all this put away power, think the point's going to end. But you can't ever assume that. You need to be ready for it to come back. And so, yeah, if you're going to poach, like win that point. But what I'm saying is you might not win that point. So don't do an embarrassing poach where you're pushing me to the ground to get in front of me. I think be ready is great advice, no matter your level. And then, yeah, adding some stability by shifting your grip. Yeah, great work. Thank you, Bodhi, for sponsoring this section. And Wilson, you did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before we sort of wrap up, it's time. My whole thing has fallen apart over here, but it's time for a new gear alert. And that is, I wanted to highlight that we've got some exciting stuff coming from Honolulu Pickleball Company. If you're a fan of the channel, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm a big Honolulu Pickleball guy. And this is the J2XK. So this is the J2K with an extended handle. And I've talked to the owner, Jam, of Honolulu Pickleball, and this paddle is not meant to replace the J2K, but just give folks that really want a super comfortable two-hander backhand an option. And so this is actually coming out. It should launch this week. Honolulu's pickleball paddle launches can get a little like they just happen fast and you won't always have a lot of notice, but this is supposed to come out this week. It's going to come in a blue version, a red version, as well as a pro. And I don't have the pro, and so I'm trying to get that one and then do one of my normal breakdown reviews. But this release I'm pretty excited about. I'm not as much excited about the two-hander on the drives, although we talked about last podcast, that's something I'm working on, especially for the dinks and the soft hits.
I think
But
you need to
I,
borrow my ball machine.
yes, but I'm excited for the whipping opportunity. But that's not all. We've got more news coming from Honolulu Pickleball. And this paddle you might have seen floating around. It's been leaked already, but this is the J4K, aka the frying pan, the griddle paddle. I'm not sure. The Frankenstein, Frankenstein paddle. It's just a kooky paddle. We haven't really seen this shape before. And really, the point of this, the owner has stated, is just to give control paddle lovers something super, super stable. And this is also going to be the blue layup like this, the red layup, and then they are doing a pro version. And so that
Wow.
should also be coming out this week. So be on the lookout. Honolulu paddles do sell out sometimes, especially for hot releases. I think the that extended handle is going to be an exciting paddle for folks. And that's not all. There's more. Wilson, you don't know this, but I've actually gotten a chance to get some of
Whoa.
some of the Yola
Pro
Pro
4.
4, the Gen 3 paddles, the new Gen 3 paddles from Yola. I've not played with Yola paddles before, and I took, I believe I took the 16 millimeter out, and I did a few dinks, and the dinks were going straight past the kitchen line, so I gotta weight these up for my play style. But I'm really excited. There's a lot of cool tech going into these. And then they have a new shape, a new addition to their line with the Agassi paddles. So the famous tennis player, you guys might have seen all the coverage. Yola did a big event with a lot of the bigger YouTube reviewers. Hey Yola, Matthew K. Pickleball lives in LA. That's just a drive or a short flight for the next one. But I'm excited to hit with these. I've never really had the chance to play with Yola's paddles, and so this, of course, a lot of reviews have already been released on these paddles, but hopefully people will subscribe and see what I think about them. But there's more, Wilson, and then we'll wrap up.
Ooh.
But I already talked about Gearbox's launch of the. Actually, let's talk about that again really quickly if I can find them. So I failed to mention, so this is Gearbox's latest release, and this is once again the follow-up to the Hyper, and this is going to be 275. Unfortunately, there's no discount for this one, no discount code, but yeah, Gearbox premium price tag as usual, but they are doing something a little different with these paddles. And so let's see how this looks on camera.
They're
So
really pretty.
yeah, these are the GX2. We have the elongated, and then this shape, the Intriga XL, which is, I believe, a little bit different than their other Intriga shape. And did I mix those up? This is the Intriga, sorry, and this is the elongated. But anyway, this is Gearbox utilizing, if you're familiar with some of the Gearbox's pro paddles, they use this crazy core structure utilizing carbon fiber ribs. They really promote it as being more durable than both honeycomb cores and then full foam cores. And these are supposed to launch April 8th for these two versions. And these are going to be 270. However, they are doing a code for this one. So promo code Matthew K should knock off 10%. And then a month or two after these two launch, a GX2 Hyper should be launching. And so these are using a new SST 2.0 carbon rib core. And so this is just Gearbox doing some new stuff. And yeah, if you're familiar with their pro paddles, they don't utilize edge guards and they're typically super thin. And so this is a more familiar looking paddle, but the interior is supposed to be Gearbox tech. And so I'm excited to hit with these. And those are my new gear alerts. And then I think I also wanted to just remind folks that I've got that Picklin for Good paddle review in the works. And so that's exciting. So be sure to subscribe to check that out. And then I wanted to highlight as we wrap up that my top videos paddle, that giveaway is about to wrap up. And that one is giving away 3 Honolulu J2 titaniums. So make sure you check that video out to enter. And yeah, comment down below what you think I should review next, what we should talk on the channel next. And Wilson, anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to all of our listeners and hopefully watchers?
No, I had a blast again, you know. Thanks for having me on again.
Thank you, Wilson, for joining. And I forgot to say this last time. Of course, please like and subscribe. But we both hope, if you're watching or listening, that you'll get to pickle soon. And just don't forget, it's about having fun. And that's it. That's our outro. We're working on it, guys. But please like and subscribe. Thanks so much.